Hello YouTube, this is Ben Gessel. Still kind of using my phone here for videos for YouTube. Yeah, anyway, I'll get back to my computer here in a bit. We'll see when. But again, earlier, a while back, I made a video on a review of Divinity Original Sin video game. I'm gonna do another. I accidentally deleted that video. Sorry about that. I'm gonna make even a better review, I think, tonight. To apologize, I know it's a little dark. Might turn on some lights here in a bit. Anyway, so for this video, before I get to the review of Divinity Original Sin, I thought I'd do a more in-depth review of video games I've played and actually finished in the past, and how I'd rank them, as well as some video games that I bought in the fantasy adventure general arena that I didn't finish, maybe why. But so I think a lot of the younger viewers will know some of these games, but not some of them they won't. Older viewers will say, I won't say middle age, but those that were approaching the Generation X arena will, if they're gamers, they'll probably know all of these. But I'm not mentioning Atari stuff or old stuff like that. But yeah, older, I guess you could say. Okay, here we go. So let's just jump right into this. And I'm going to start. There's 17 games, at least 17, that I've finished, actually beat, that I really, they're fantasy games. That, and one of them technically I've beaten, I've won, or whatever. I could have done it easily. I just didn't. You'll know why here in a bit. So number 17 is Pillars of Eternity. I just finished it a while back. Easily the worst game I've actually played and finished. I thought, oh, this is a cheaper game. It looks pretty good. Still have my computer. It's kind of a dud. It's not too bad. At least I finished it, right? It's got its merits. The nice thing is you can have a 6-member party, just like in Baldur's Gate, right? You got some places to go to, and it's actually kind of pretty in some areas, a little bit beautiful, foresty, and there's some variety, and one of the later areas is actually pretty imaginative in the way that the town is set up, but it's just not that great overall. There's a lot of things that are. There's other views that go into more why Pillars of Eternity isn't really that great. Anyway, so going on here, Morrowind. I didn't actually finish Morrowind, but I got to actually the highest level, I think, of any game I've ever played, ever, without finishing it, because it just, like these Elder Scroll games, they just keep going, and going, and going. So, it was the first time I had played an Elder Scrolls game, and I just remember going everywhere. And I just, it was the only, game I played for a while, really. And, it's back at Central Washington University. And, yeah, it was okay. Morrowind is, some of these games, I think a lot of people didn't care for Pillars of Eternity. But there were still a small number that thought it was okay, at least. With Morrowind, you get a lot of, that's an awesome game, and that's really a dumb game. A lot of strong feelings on both ends. I'm not gonna get into the whole thing with Elder Scrolls games in general, but uh, it's okay. I mean, I'm trying to say there's a lot in them that appeal to the fantasy geek, right? The fantasy nerd, or whatever. It's very unique. It's very. There are areas that are, that whole different kinds of elves and things, and in this case, dark elves. But yeah, some of the surroundings are very imaginative. One area in particular, I was really fond of, but maybe at least a few. So it's more of a scenic kind of game, but these Elder Scroll games can leave you hanging a little bit, and everyone kind of knows why. It's just you can't have a party with you, and after the 50th dungeon, you're kind of like, where is this going, or what am I, I'm just exploring forever, and it's the more you like to just kind of do your own thing with no one else in your party, and just kind of go do whatever you want to do, the more you enjoy that kind of thing, and you don't mind some repetition in that regard. Those are Elder Scrolls games. We just keep running around wherever you want to, but you do kind of lose out a little bit sometimes on how enjoyable some content can be, or the variety of content, or character, especially things like character depth. It's hard to remember very many people from these games. That's okay. Pros and cons. So going on here a little bit. Neverwinter Nights. I finished the game, of course. It was not the funnest game. It was okay at first. It was actually not too bad. It's a little bit linear. Again, I played a while back, and it's not particularly memorable to me. I'm just gonna go on here. Lord of the Rings. I played there's a lot of Lord of the Rings games. I can't remember exactly the one I played, but whatever I did play, I think I finished it. There again, there's a lot of them. It had something having to do with, trying to evade the one of the horse guys that comes in for the ring, right? I just remember that particular scene was really exciting and kind of tense because you're trying to escape, the inn without him catching you. Sorry, I can't remember more about this game, but I've played Lord of the Rings games. Anyway. Icewind Dale 1 and 2 will be up next as we get through this list of there's 17 of them. Which one I'd like more than the other? I have a slight preference for Icewind Dale 1, but the ending was really bugged, and so it really bothered me that I just assumed, I beat this game, because I knew I could beat the guy, and I don't want to give away very much in the way of storyline here, because in case you guys haven't played any of these games, but as we get to Icewind Dale and beyond, these are, I think, worth looking into a little bit. I'll definitely tell you guys when you want to play some of these games. But the Icewind Dale games were pretty decent, but they're harder. There's a lot more battle strategy, basically, and it's very linear. So it's very linear compared to Baldur's Gate and stuff. But I liked how it was kind of scenic in a very polar or northern. It's a little bit Nordic. It's more of a kind of. It's not really It's more of a kind of a old barbarian of the, really cold areas to the north. So it's not really technically Scandinavian or Viking-ish, but maybe a little bit. It has just a really frosty feel to it, Icewind Dale. It's more of a generic or general, just kind of cold, setting. But some of the areas are very, very beautiful, and it does feel kind of peaceful. It's definitely there's no big cities that I can think of really. Everything's kind of out in the boonies, foresty a little bit. but yeah, again, the some things about it are pretty enjoyable. Other things, again, it's just very linear. Um, uh, Up next would be Oblivion, which is I never played. I didn't play Skyrim. I mean, I might. I don't know. Maybe Oblivion is, I think, a strong game. It's a good game. It's, in my opinion, better than Morrowind. But then a lot of people are gonna take me to town, take me apart for saying that. But I again haven't played Skyrim, so I like can't tell. I know a lot of people would prefer Skyrim over Oblivion. I mean, it's kind of, these Elder Scrolls games are kind of set up all the same. In Oblivion, you just have a little bit more the beautiful aspects of the landscape, where it's very lush compared to Morrowind. If you like desert type climates, or you like mountainous climates, you like Morrowind. If you like beautiful green environments, that sort of thing, you like Oblivion. And then you did the kind of same thing with Skyrim, with the beautiful green thing, but they just had more frosty mountainous areas, of course. But Oblivion had a mystery to it that Morrowind also had, with all the old stuff, all the old ruins and things. I think it just it had the Imperial City, which, I know that in Morrowind you had that city to the south, starts with V. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the Imperial City is pretty good sized city. It's pretty decent sized. The architecture is really great. Again, it's been a while since I played it. There's a lot of different things to do in Oblivion, but again, after a while, you just kind of like, okay, let's wrap this up. And when I beat the game, I was like, okay, I'm done. It's very anticlimactic. I'll put it that way. So that's one of the not so great things about Oblivion. Anyway, a lot to mention about Oblivion. It's in the middling arena now. I'm not saying you must play. There's nothing must play yet. These are all, you might want to give it a shot if you haven't. In this ballpark. Now, King's Quest V, I imagine I only played one of the King's Quest games, but King's Quest games from the past, these are the ones that now that Generation X might be more familiar with, that sort of thing. King's Quest games are pretty good. And I was very happy with King's Quest V. But more on that later. Fable was going to be a huge game, but it turned out to be not quite as big as maybe it was originally designed to be. But it still had a lot in the way of color and beautiful scenery, as well as battle tactics and strategies, and also some very fun fantasy elements, as well as some humorous stuff, as well as it had a lot going for it. I liked the color, very bright colors with Fable. Fable. Now they made 2 and 3, which I don't know why they didn't make for, PC or Mac, or I don't know. I don't know. So I would love to be able to play those later varieties, but I guess apparently though, it would have been nice to see this game even have a bigger kind of thing about it. Microsoft, I don't know why they went with I don't know. They could have made this game even better, but Fable's a strong number 9 in my list. Here, number 8, the game I'm playing right now, Divinity Original Sin. Now this is where you want to start looking into these games. I mean, certainly Fable, but definitely by the time we get to Divinity Original Sin. I haven't played Divinity Original Sin 2. These games are said to be the best games that come out in a while, and that's, because a lot of games that come out in quite some time aren't very great. I've just avoided them. But Divinity Original Sin, like Icewind Dale, and like, I don't know, Dragon Age, and well, it just has harder battle strategies. There's a lot more strategy involved with combat. A lot more. And there's a lot more things you can do in, being creative with different kinds of substances. I mean, it's just in that area alone, you could play this game. If you love, the more you love battle strategy, the more, and there's things like, I don't know. I'm going to say this for the review, but it really is a beefy game. There are other games that have better main storylines, and maybe it's, you know, just more welcoming. Right? It's easier to kind of keep going. This game punishes you a little bit. It's hard, even on novice level. And you know, I describe my gaming as being, I'm not the most casual gamer, but you know, I'm definitely not a serious gamer. You know, but I don't know what those guys do for income, other than, you know, maybe they could make money playing games. Anyway, writing for video game companies, not just being programmers, but video game magazines and stuff. I don't know. So this is a great game, though. Divinity Original Sin is great. More about that with this one later. This is solid number 8. Number 7 is Dragon Age Origins. I didn't play the next one after that. I just played the first one, and it was good. Definitely good. Definitely worth picking up Dragon Age Origins. I put it ahead of Divinity Original Sin, but just barely. Divinity Original Sin has more color to it. Dragon Age has kind of drab colors comparatively, but it depends on where you're at. But there's a lot of Dragon Age has a lot of the dwarven, rocky, not so colorful, you know, interior stuff going on. It will feel like they really took the dwarven thing from Lord of the Rings and kind of developed they developed the dwarves a lot in Dragon Age. So there's more of more of a well-rounded culture where you still have the miners and you still have the warriors and the repairmen, but you get just they develop the dwarven culture a bit more. So you can kind of you know, it's one of the beefiest games in terms of dwarves I've ever seen with Dragon Age Origins, easily. That's number 7. Now here's where we start getting into really, truly favorites. I mean, Harry Potter 2 maybe doesn't seem like it would be a candidate for this, and I imagine the other Harry Potters would be up there as well, but I know it's a bit juvenile, but gosh, the color alone just sells it, as well as just how fun it is. I mean, like, I liked Harry Potter a lot, more than I thought I would originally, and it really was a fun game to play. There's a lot, it's just, you know, it's great. If you still have a PC that can run, well, it's not too old, but if you have you know, if you can run the game, I'd recommend checking it out. Number 5. These are definitely must-have games at this point. Which this is the 3rd installment of Baldur's Gate. So you really want to have, you probably have the enhanced edition, or you have the more recent version of Baldur's Gate 1, 2, and Throne of Ball. I'm talking about Throne of Ball with number 5. So they're, you know, I should mention them all as a group. So I'll do that, you know, as a group. Number 4 was Alice the Madness Returns. And again, there's more American McGee's Alice games, which I'm sure are amazing. I want to play them as well. But the one, just this first-person game from the late 90s, I think, early 2000s, maybe early 2000s, is, I know this, actually, you know, kind of sought after now a little bit, I think, but it's really a great game. A lot of fun. It's very fantasy-ish. Tons of color. I mean, tons of strategy, and just it's a little bit challenging, not too challenging. I forgot to mention, this is kind of a different kind of game. Robin Hood, I think, is something which Legend of Sherwood Forest, but I don't know if I describe that as a fantasy game, but it's worth also checking out as well, with the color and there's other, you know, strategy games and design games I won't get into right now, but so Wheel of Time, which is first-person fantasy adventure, kind of solo game, back in the late 90s. So Alice Madness Returns is actually more early 2000s. The Wheel of Time is getting back into the very early 2000s. I can't remember. Might have come out in the very late 90s, but it is amazing. If you have an old PC that can run that old of a game, definitely play it. You just want to make sure that your computer isn't too fast. It needs to or at least you need to, this game needs to be updated, I think. But I thought it's easily one of the best games. It's an older game, easily. I know it came out after Legend of Kyrandia and those point-and-click adventure games, most of them. And so maybe, it's unfair to compare Legend of Kyrandia, which is a little bit older game, with something like the Wheel of Time. But I was going to mention it's just better than the Legend of Kyrandia. Legend of Kyrandia was actually really awesome, except it was just very difficult and random at one point. I liked some of I never got through that game officially. Anyway, I shouldn't get it. But I love the graphics of Legend of Kyrandia. I love a lot of aspects of it. Okay, so number 2, we're getting to the top 2. Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 are still the best games. I've never played any game that was better than Baldur's Gate 1 or 2. I'll let you guys know if I do. But I think these video game companies need to shape up and figure out what made these best games. I mean, I don't know. From Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and Throne of Ball to Alice, the Madness Returns, and the Wheel of Time, right? The adoption by Robert Jordan, right? Well, Robert Jordan's books came in video game format. So Wheel of Time, Alice, Madness Returns, Baldur's Gate games. Plus, some of the Harry Potter ones or Dragon Age Origins. These games work well. Plus, I would add in Divinity Original Sin. And imagine Divinity Original Sin 2 might be farther up there. I've heard it's better than Divinity Original Sin. But these video game companies need to study what really works in these games. I know I haven't mentioned other really highly ranked games like The Witcher, because I don't want to play something that has a bunch of sex in it. All right, but I understand that Witcher 3 is really great, as well as some other ones. I know the ones that are really highly thought of. But, these game companies, and it's not just copying, they need to make better games, There are games that are really great that I haven't finished for a variety of reasons. Like Planescape Torment, very depressing game, but if you like really dark, morbid stuff, fine. Arcanum's theme works, so it's not a great game. In my opinion, Heroes of Might and Magic, I never got to those stuff. Or Wizards and Warriors. I know there's a lot of these games that are, Neverwinter Nights 2 I actually didn't finish. I could have, it just didn't. Yeah, I could have though. And of course, Loom and Legend of Kyrandia. Loom was a really old one. But, so there's lots of games I haven't finished. I've tried, or Darkened Sky is another one. I just barely played that one. When I was younger, I just touched on it. But hopefully you guys get some stuff out of this. This is kind of more where I'm coming from a little bit as a gamer. So I love color. I love fantasy. I think fantasy adventure, high fantasy, whatever, all kinds of other fantasy. I think it hasn't lost its way. There's still a lot of people that know what. There's different kinds of subgenres of fantasy, but a lot of people know what at least high fantasy or epic fantasy really should be. Maybe some of the more refined kinds of fantasy, or the Dungeons and Dragons stuff. Even some of the dungeon crawlers. A lot of people know what fantasy really should be about, and a lot of people, it's something more action oriented, or it's something, video games sometimes corrupt the ideas of fantasy sometimes a little bit. And of course, it goes without saying that fantasy isn't the same thing as evil, real magic and all that stuff. Magic with a K. I shouldn't even have to mention that, but there's a lot of loony people out there that still think that, well, I don't know. But I want, again, video game companies to make better games. And I want more real fantasy in what they say is fantasy. And it's the same thing with movies, all right? There's a lot of dragon movies out there. Most of them aren't so great. Dragons are awesome, sure, but there's a lot of things we haven't done yet with dragons. We can, we don't have to make, for instance, a bipolar, bisexual dragon. I'm just saying that you don't have to make fantasy creatures that are just different for different sake, But, you know, there's still a lot of things that haven't been done and that could be done. So, all right, I'll catch you guys later. Take care. Bye.